Testing 1, 2, 3. We good? Do you need more, guys? Are we good?
So that's on.
Yeah, it's on.
It's a little trebly though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. Yeah. It is, I think it's, no, it's okay. Martina Austin. Somebody give me a signal. I'm a member of this congregation and your worship associate today. On behalf of Reverend Dave Dunn, Director of Religious Exploration, Lexi T. Brown, our music director, Alex Peach, the greeters and the technical team that are making today's live stream possible, I'd like to welcome you to the Unitarian Universalist Atlanta Metro North congregation, which we lovingly call UUMAN. UUMAN is a liberal faith community with the mission to nurture our spirit, strive for justice, and transform the world. No matter who you are, who you love, or where you are in your spiritual journey, you are all welcome here. Welcome to everyone that's joining us remotely. For any visitors that are here with us for the first time, and if you're comfortable doing so, would you please stand and tell us your name and where you're from so we can get to know you better? Are there any first-time visitors over here? Hi. Welcome. Hi, welcome. 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 And are there any first-time visitors on this side? Okay. Today begins our second week of 30 Days of Love. Please join us on Zoom this Tuesday at 7 to create community and plan work of transformation during difficult times. This week's topic will be climate justice, and the Zoom link can be found on the UUMAN calendar. What gifts will you give or receive? We have several adult enrichment offerings today during second hour. They are listed in your order of worship, along with the upcoming RE schedule and some events. The next class of our UU 101 course will be held here today. This course is especially relevant for people who are new to UUMAN and want to learn more about us. Please join us today at 11:15 in the sanctuary or see Lynn Hannon for more information. That's Lynn Hannon. Our little members need your help. The nursery is in desperate need of 2 volunteers to add to their monthly rotation. Please see our nursery coordinator, Mira, or DRE Lexi for an extra dose of cuteness and cuddles once a month. And then a special thanks from the RE team to everyone who supported our coming of age youth while participating in fundraising. Everybody who donated, bought tickets, and more. Thank you to the parents for supporting the program, the COA team, and to Francie Deskin, who helped make our culinary fundraisers so delicious. These youth model what hard work and dedication look like. And finally, this morning's sermon, entitled 5 Smooth Stones, was purchased by Sarah Hunter at this year's Harvest Moon auction. And now, let us greet one another in the hand or elbow of friendship.
Good morning. It's like packed in here. Wow. Why be a religious liberal? This is by UU theologian James Luther Adams. Why be a religious liberal? Because confidence in principles of liberalism, a living tradition, it's not coercive, it establishes justice, it's virtuous, ethical, democratic, and ultimately optimistic. And it's the only effective resistance to ultimate skepticism and despair on one side, and to blasphemous claims of authority, suppression, and oppression on the other. James Luther Adams. Why be a religious liberal? And now let us light our chalice together as religious liberals.
As we light this chalice, we kindle the spirit of the great turning, the movement for justice alive in this nation today. May we feel it in our bones, in the stillness of this hour, and may we sense it calling our name. And now, if you are able, if you would please stand and sing our opening hymn together, hymn number 95 in the Gray Book, There Is More Love. And now is the time in our service when children, young and old, are invited to the front for our story time for all ages. After the story, the children are invited to exit into Fellowship Hall for Kids Community for a fun all ages activity.
So our book today, thank you. Does everybody here know who Jimmy Carter was? Yes. He wrote this book. This is a story that he told to his children when they were little, and when the youngest one, Amy, grew up, they decided to write a book of the story, and then she drew the pictures. So it's called The Little Baby Snugglefleasure. Okay. Whoops. Once upon a time, there was a little boy named Jeremy who lived with his mother in a small house near the sea. His mother earned a bare living for the two of them by washing clothes for some of the wealthy families in their town. Jeremy loved her very much and was proud when he could help her with chores around the house. Being disabled, Jeremy was not able to run and play with other children, but he could move around using crutches. He enjoyed reading and studying, and he was a pretty happy guy. One of Jeremy's favorite places was on some big rocks near the beach, in a spot that was protected from the strong ocean breezes and usually warmed by the sunshine. His mother had taught Jeremy to swim when he was a little boy, and he enjoyed being in the water. He limped slowly when he was on the shore, but he felt free and so at home in the waves. The other children often played on the beach, and he would watch them at their games. They never asked him to join them, though, and sometimes one of the larger boys would tease him about moving so slowly and not being able to play tag or chase a ball. However, he was a brave lad, sure of his mother's love, and was content even though he could not join the other children. One summer day, Jeremy was watching the other children playing volleyball on the beach when suddenly there was a commotion in the sea. Something large and strange was approaching them, appearing every now and then above the surface of the water. It must be porpoises. It could be a whale. All of a sudden, an enormous head came out of the waves, and the frightened children screamed, "It's a sea monster!" They all ran away as fast as they could, all except Jeremy. He reached for his crutches, but one of them slid off the rock and fell on the sand just as the strange creature was coming out of the ocean. The monster's eyes were as big as softballs. His ears hung down like large burlap bags, and there were spines on top of his head and down his back. There seemed to be 100 huge teeth in his mouth. The beast was horribly ugly and frightening, but strangely seemed to be smiling. Jeremy was almost too frightened to move and could only wait to be eaten as the monster drew closer. "Don't be afraid," the monster said. "I'm not going to hurt you." Jeremy was so amazed to hear these words, or any words at all, that he stopped scrambling for his crutch, and finally he was able to talk. "Who are you? What are you? Where did you come from? How did you get so large? Why are you here, and what do you want?" His questions poured out, and the monster just laughed. Wait, just a minute. Give me a chance to answer you. My home is deep in the sea. I am a baby snugglefleasure, very small compared to my parents. They have always warned me not to come near the shore in very lonely places. I've slipped away a few times to see if I could find a friend, but people always ran away when they saw me. You are the only one who ever waited for me to get close enough to talk. You must be very brave. Would you like to play? "I would have run too," said Jeremy, "but I dropped my crutch. I don't have many friends either, and I can't play because I'm disabled." "Would you like to go for a ride?" the snugglefleasure asked. "There will be a lot of people coming in a few minutes, and they might want to hurt me. But we would be safe at sea, so I'll be careful, and I'll bring you back." Jeremy climbed onto the monster's head, and the little baby snugglefleasure moved carefully out through the waves. They swam along the shore. They asked each other a lot of questions, and they enjoyed each other's company. Finally, Jeremy told his new friend that he better go home now. He didn't want his mother to worry. "Okay," said the snugglefleasure. If you want, we can take another ride tomorrow." They agreed that only his mother would know about this strange experience. Jeremy rushed home all excited, but when he tried to tell his mother what had happened, she interrupted him. "Hush, Jeremy, I don't want to hear anymore. Your imagination is just running away with you. Maybe you have been reading too many books." Well, taken aback, Jeremy thought, "Okay, I'll keep my secret to myself." He found time to meet his new friend often, and they had great times together in the sea. Sometimes they would even go under the water for a short time with the boy holding tightly to the Snugglefleeser's big ears. It was a happy time for both of them. One day, Jeremy returned home and surprised to see his mother sitting quietly in a rocking chair. He noticed that her work was not finished and asked if anything was wrong. Well, Jeremy, yes, I've always been honest with you, and there is no reason not to tell you the truth now. I'm sorry I haven't been patient with you, but I've been kind of sick. The doctor told me that actually I'm very sick, and the operation I would need would cost a lot of money, and I have been able to earn only enough to pay our bills. I don't know what we can do. Jeremy tried to comfort his mom. He promised to help her more around the house, and he was so busy taking care of his mother, they had no time to visit with the baby Snugglefleeser. Despite their best efforts, his mother became more sick as the weeks went by, spending more time in bed. One afternoon, when his mother was resting, Jeremy returned to his favorite rock. A few tears were running down his cheeks when the baby Snugglefleeser saw him sitting on the shore. "What's the matter?" the baby Snugglefleeser asked. "It's been a long time since I've seen you. Why are you crying?" Jeremy explained that his mother was ill and that they did not have any money to pay for the operation she needed. "I wish there was something I could do." "What's money?" asked the baby Snugglefleeser. "Maybe I can help." Jeremy tried to explain and finally took a few copper coins, probably pennies, out of his pocket to show him. "We need more than this, though." "Do they have to be this color?" asked the Snugglefleeser. "No, silver coins are worth more, and gold ones are even much more valuable." "Come with me," said the Snugglefleeser. They moved out into the deep water, then far down the coast until they reached some sharp rocks. "Wait here," the baby Snugglefleeser said, and he dove under while Jeremy swam around on the surface. He returned after a few minutes, and the boy took his usual perch on his friend's head. They swam silently to shore. After Jeremy climbed off, the monster opened his mouth and dropped a number of gold coins on the sand. Jeremy gasped in surprise. "Would these be helpful?" the baby Snugglefleeser asked. "There's a large chest of them in an old wrecked ship at the bottom of the sea." Putting the coins deep in his pocket, Jeremy hurried home as fast as he could. He showed his mother the treasure. She had never seen so much money in her life and asked Jeremy 100 questions. He told her all about the Snugglefleeser now and about their many adventures together. She no longer questioned his story. They were both so happy. Now she could have her operation. After his mother was well again, Jeremy took her to meet his monster friend. She wanted to thank him for helping her. They all became friends and enjoyed many seagoing trips together. Jeremy soon became a hero among the other children who saw him riding on the little Snugglefleeser's head. "It's unbelievable," they said. "Jeremy is really strong and brave. All by himself, he tamed a ferocious sea monster." Yeah.
At this point in our service, we share our joys with each other to magnify them and our sorrows to divide the weight of their pain. If you're so moved, please feel free to come forward, drop a pebble in the bowl, and express a joy or a sorrow that you may have. For those attending via live stream, if you have a joy or a sorrow to share, please type it into the chat.
Hi, we're Carolyn and Mark Lee, and a lot of you may already know this, but our daughter, who actually was raised here in UUMAN, is pregnant, and we had a gender reveal party yesterday, and it's a girl, and they've already picked a name, so it's going to be Bailey Nicole Bradley, and Nicole is also Rihanna's middle name, so I was kind of honored she picked that one. So anyway, we're excited, and she's due in July.
I'm Martin Podorowski. I have a pebble of sorrow today. My college roommate, Mike, passed away unexpectedly last week. He's survived by his wife, 2 young adult sons, and his parents, as well as a lot of friends and coworkers in the aviation industry. So I'm remembering him today.
I'm Sarah Hunter, I'm a member, and you may notice I walked up here. And I'm not completely healed, but I am walking. So the next goal is walking the dogs, one of which is a little crazy. And the other is I'm so glad that you are doing this sermon. The more I read about him, the more I get to know our religion, I guess is the best way to put it. So, thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Kevin McCulloch, and I'm helping to run the live stream today. From the chat, we have 4 joys. One from Dave Pragle, who says, "Today is my mother's 93rd birthday. She lives with my sister and her family in Easton, Maryland." And then another, also from Dave Pragle, "Thanks to all those who helped plan and participated in the COA fundraisers. We exceeded our fundraising goals. Also a big thanks to those who bought tickets or otherwise supported our youth." Sarah Maurice reports, "Joy, spending time with family this weekend, but also sorrow. My best friend from childhood has a brain mass." Steve Allerton reports, "Joy for last night's coffee house, especially hearing Frankie No Name and meeting some new UUMANites."
Hi, I'm Liz Martin. I'm your intern minister here at UUMAN for the next 2 years. And I'd like to share a joy that yesterday, Reverend Dave and I were able to attend the ordination of Phoenix Shelton Bell Riggs, who preached here a few weeks ago. So it was a wonderful reminder of this great path to ministry.
And I will drop one final pebble for all those joys and sorrows that are still too tender to escape the folds of our hearts. Let's keep one another in our thoughts for the coming week.
I will play for you a song called Holy Now by Peter Mayer of Blue Boat Home fame. And what he's addressing is how many faiths seem to think that this life we are living is heaven's second-rate hand-me-down. And so here's his response to that. When I was a boy, each week, on Sunday we would go to church, and we'd pay attention to the priest, and he would read that holy word, and consecrate the little holy bread, and everyone would kneel and bow. But today the only difference is everything is holy now. Everything is holy now. And back when I was in Sunday school, we would learn all about the time that Moses was seeing too, and Jesus make that water wine. And I remember feeling oh so sad that miracles don't happen still. Now I can't keep track, 'cause everything's a miracle. Oh, everything is a miracle. Well, don't you know that wine from water is not so small, but an even better magic trick is that anything is here at all. And so the challenging thing becomes not to look for miracles, find where there isn't one. When holy water was rare, it begged It barely wet my fingertips, but now I gotta hold my breath like I'm swimming in a sea of air. No, there used to be a world half there, having second-rate hand-in-hand. And I walk in with the Reverend Ted, but everything is holy now. Oh, everything is holy now. And when you read a questioning child's face and say it's not a testament, well, that'd be mighty hard to say. And when you see another new morning come, say it's not a sacrament, I'll tell you that it can't be done. This morning outside I stood, I saw a little red-winged bird. He was shining like a burning bush, and he was singing like a scripture verse. It made me want to bow my head. I remember when church let out. Today the only difference is, oh, everything is holy now. No, there used to be a world half dead, heaven second-rate hand-me-down. Now I walk in with the Reverend Ted, 'cause everything is holy now. Everything, every time, everywhere, everyone, all miracles, miracles holy now, miracles holy now.
What is Church? By James Luther Adams. Churches will affirm their belief that religion is futile and sterile unless it has direct and effective bearing on the problems of human society. They will be unsparing in their criticism of the evils and injustice now existing in the world, and they will work unceasingly for a better social order. They will consider it a part of their business to make available accurate and reliable information on social conditions, and they will not hesitate to take appropriate action in times of social emergency or stress. In the present conflict of social forces, they will throw the weight of their influence on the side of every agency which seeks to promote human welfare by methods consistent with their religion.
John for the song. Peter Mayer sometimes goes to Susie in Virginia, yes, and he played a concert for us a few years ago. Susie is UU Summer Camp. It's in Virginia this year, like the last week of July. Maybe 800 UUs a week together. It's the best. And I will be there this year. Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war. They occupied one hill, the Israelites on the other, with a valley in between. Goliath, the Philistine, almost 10 feet tall, walked onto the battlefield. He had a bronze helmet, bronze shield, a bronze javelin strapped across his back. This day I defy the armies of Israel. Send one of yours out so that we may fight, he declared. King Saul of the Israelites and the rest of the Israelites were dismayed and frightened, terrified. Now David was the son of Jesse, the 8th son and youngest. His 3 oldest brothers were on the front that day. Yet he was at home, tending the sheep on most days. He had to tend his father's sheep as the youngest. But on this particular day, he left the care of the sheep with someone else, and he went to the front, just as Goliath was issuing that threat. David said to King Saul, "Let no one lose heart on account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." And King Saul looks at David, who's really just like a teenager at this point. He says, "You can't fight him. He has been a warrior since his youth." David replied, "This Philistine has defied the armies of the Lord. The Lord will rescue me." Saul eventually relented and gave David his own armor, helmet of bronze and a shield. But David wasn't used to that. He took them off. "I cannot go in these," he said. So then, wearing nothing but his shepherd's clothing, he reached down into a stream and chose 5 smooth stones. And he put them in his shepherd's pouch and walked onto the battlefield with a sling in his hand. When Goliath saw David approaching, seeing basically a mere boy, he laughed and said, "What? Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? Come here and I'll give your flesh and bones to the birds and the wild animals." And David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with a sword and a spear and a javelin, but I come at you in the name of the Lord Almighty, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you unto my hands, and I will strike you down. And all those gathered here will know that you do not win war by sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's." And as the Philistine moved in closer to attack him, David ran quickly towards the battle line to meet him. And reaching in, grabbed a stone and slung it and struck the Philistine. And the stone embedded into the forehead of Goliath, and he fell dead face down on the battlefield. So David triumphed over Goliath with a sling and a stone, without a sword in his hand. Again, wearing nothing but a shepherd's clothing, he reached down into the stream and chose 5 smooth stones, put them in his shepherd's bag, and with his sling in his hand, he approached the Philistine. So I'll get back to that story in a minute. James Luther Adams, born in 1901, is regarded as the most influential Unitarian Universalist theologian of the 20th century. Chris Walton in the UU World magazine writes, "When James Luther Adams was a young Unitarian minister and newly appointed professor of theology at the Meadville Lombard Theological School, he went to Germany in 1935 to study with some of the greatest theologians of his time. He confronted a deeply unsettling fact there. Germany's churches were not effectively resisting the rise of Nazism. German liberalism hadn't foreseen the Nazi threat, nor did it seem to offer adequate resources for resistance. Yet Adams came to admire the German confessing church movement, exemplified and led by, among others, Lutheran pastor Dietrich Bonhoeffer, whose members of this confessing church did actively approach Hitler at great personal risk. Bonhoeffer lost his life. James Luther Adams later described his experience this way, quoting James Luther Adams, "Let me put it autobiographically and say that Nazi Germany, I soon came to question myself. What is the meaning of my preaching and my political action that would stop this rise of fascism? Is it the liberal attitude that would say we should keep ourselves informed and read the best papers on these matters and perhaps join a voluntary association now and then? Or to be involved with other people so that it costs something? so that one exposes the evils of this society. Yet in me, to do this, it would require something of a personal conversion of sorts, something more than a liberal attitude. It requires a sense that there's something wrong and that I must be different in some way, that I must be different in some way. I would say that James Luther Adams's best, most impactful writings were inspired by the threat of fascism. And what he wrote about in almost all of his essays is what it constitutes to be a person of a liberal faith. A liberal faith that, in his words, must be involved in the community and the nation and in the world. In 1941, at perhaps the height of this fascist threat, he wrote probably his most famous essay called The Guiding Principles of a Free Faith. And in that essay, one section that he named The 5 Smooth Stones of Religious Liberalism, obviously referring to the story in the first book of Samuel of David and Goliath. So it's important, before I go into this, it's important to reflect on the context again here. This is when fascism is starting to rise. Well, it's already risen by then, by 1941. But aside from this confessing church, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, James Luther Adams saw a German church that was paralyzed, frozen, unable to act. Actually, shockingly, some of them were actually complicit in the rise of fascism, complicit and supportive. So in this setting, James Luther Adams's 5 Smooth Stones provide a base for a religious faith, a liberal religious faith for us, for any liberal religious faith to respond to such threats. That's how he's writing this. The first of his stones says that revelation is continuous. In many scriptures, we have God or angels or other beings revealing themselves to people in some way. What James Luther Adams is saying here is that those kinds of events, nothing is confined strictly to the past. They are not locked in Holy Scriptures. He says events are not sealed. They always point forward to something else in the future. And that's the significance of those events. The meaning of those events are inchoate, he says, which means still forming, still underway. Therefore, it's incumbent upon religious liberals, us, to always be allowed to interpret the meaning of events always, all the time. Nothing is ever finalized and finished. It's continuous. Rather than allow some long ago story provide the answers to things, we always have to continuously process them. It's a living tradition. That's why we call Unitarian Universalism a living tradition. There's no fixed UUism ever. The second stone is that, quote, all relations between persons ought to ideally rest upon mutual free consent and not coercion. Again, all relations between persons ought to ideally rest on mutual free consent and not coercion. Okay, that sounds like individual liberty to me. And it does. But it's more important than that. As a stone of religious liberalism, it means that all of us have the freedom, really, to engage in religious inquiry in our own way. There's no structure. There's no structure. I'm not greater than you. There's no pope saying this could happen. We all can do this. I can't tell you what to believe. We all have that power. So it's not just about individual liberty, although it is in a way, but it's also saying there's no structure that's going to tell you what to believe. The meaning-making of events is up to all of us. All are responsible, he says. All are responsible for selecting and putting into action the right means for the fulfillment of human destiny. We're all responsible, in a way. We're all responsible. The third stone, quote, affirms the moral obligation to direct one's actions toward the establishment of a just and loving community. Affirms the moral obligation to direct one's efforts toward the establishment of a just and loving community. It's about creating justice. Throughout history, there's creative and destructive forces in humanity. Good and evil, no question. And the destructive powers arise when our ego gets the better of ourselves and we fall into greed, carelessness, self-centeredness. He says that the third stone maintains that, quote, the holy thing in life is in the participation of those processes that give body and form to universal justice. The holy thing in life is the participation in the processes that give body and form to universal justice. The holy thing in life, yes. And this is not always safe, however, he says. It can be dangerous. There can be pain when you engage in this way. The fourth stone says that we deny the immaculate conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. What that means is a virtuous society just doesn't happen on its own, magically. It's not immaculately conceived. A virtuous society is socially conceived, socially incarnated, meaning we have to create it. It doesn't just magically happen. And how we do that, he says, and I agree with him, is through institutions and organizations. Without these, he says, freedom and justice in community become impossible. The faith of a church or the faith of a nation, he says, is an adequate faith only when it inspires and enables people to give their time and energy in the shape of various institutions. Social, economic, or political, doesn't matter in life. It's a faith that tries to shape history through institutions and organizations. Power is amoral. Power is not good or bad. Power can corrupt, yet power can create justice. He writes, injustice in a community is a form of power. It's an abuse of power. And justice is an exercise of just and lawful institutional power. Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, they didn't do things by themselves. They were part of an organization. They were working. We put people on pedestals like they're heroes and forget all the work that went before that. Nelson Mandela was working for years and years and years. All these folks were working for years with other people through institutions to do their work. That's what James Luther Adams is talking about. This is before Martin Luther King. The fifth stone, final stone, is of religious liberalism holds that the resources for our achievement, for meaningful change, justify an attitude of ultimate optimism. Optimism. The resources for the achievement of meaningful change justify an attitude of optimism and hope. Evil may know no bounds and may not be immediate. Optimism may not be immediately what we feel, but there is reason for optimism. He writes that the affirmative answer to prophetic religion, which may not be heard in the very midst of doom that threatens us, but the message is that history is a struggle between good and evil, justice and injustice, but we look towards the ultimate victory in the promise and the fulfillment of grace. As 19th century Unitarian minister Theodore Parker said, and Martin Luther King and Obama have quoted him, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Unitarian minister Theodore Parker. Yes, there's reason for optimism. You might not feel it now. There's reason for hope. That said, today, the arc is being seriously tested and being firmly bent towards injustice. An American Goliath has reappeared, threatening to destroy institutions of power and justice that oppose him. Many are dismayed, terrified, running from the battlefield. They're very much afraid. Many serving in their own selfish interests at the expense of the common good, and many others in disregard of their sworn duty to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Instead, they're cowardly, kneeling to polish the bronze armor of this American Goliath, genuflecting to a false god. National values proclaiming to give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. And other values like duty, honor, country being replaced with other values. Among others, a false religious nationalism that looks to blame others for problems of their own making. It's not your fault, this American Goliath said. It's the immigrants' fault. It's the persons of color fault. It's the trans person's fault. It's a woman's fault, but it's not yours. No. That's what this American Goliath says to his followers caught up in this so-called religious fervor. This American Goliath also tells his followers that God saved me so that I can restore America's greatness. But he also says with a wink and a smile that the rule of law must be followed. That is, unless it stands in our way. And if those laws do stand in our way, then they are not laws that contribute to American greatness and therefore need not be followed. And if they're not followed, don't worry, I will have your back. I will pardon you. He says to his followers, we don't really need a constitution. We will do the checking and balancing. Executive orders to check the legislative branch, executive pardons to balance the judicial. This is our American manifest destiny, he says. Yet there are others who do not accept this American Goliath, this false god. They're not kneeling, they're not genuflecting. They see this false so-called emperor for who he is, an emperor with no clothes. And his reign will soon come to an end. This too will pass. People can get hurt. He has the power to hurt people. That's going to happen. Yet for the creation of justice, this sometimes demands wounds. The moment of truth has arrived. Emerging from our safe havens, discarding the safety of our armor, the time has come to quickly run to the battlefield to meet him, to reach down into the stream of life, into the stream of history, and choose to pick up our 5 smooth stones.
In an effort to fulfill and further the vision and mission of this congregation, we ask that our members and friends share their time, treasure, and talents. With this, we will now take the offering. You may also use the Give Now option in the Breeze app. This month's 50/50 recipient is Worthy Now Prison Ministry. Any check specifically designated as 50/50 or any Breeze donations specifying Give to 50/50 this month will go to support their work.
Thank you, Miguel. We accept this sacred offering generously given by our beloved members and friends. May we use it wisely and judiciously in service to our mission.
As you're able, please stand and sing our closing hymn number 121, We'll Build a Land. And now let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
James Luther Adams says, faith is not fundamentally about one's beliefs, but rather about one's commitments. Find out what someone values. Find out what someone values the most, and you will have found the object of their faith, whether they consider themselves religious or not. Go in peace and enjoy your week.